Greetings, everyone. Blessings. In this video, we are going to discuss meditation, and more of a guided than a guided meditation. We are going to focus on discussion, what it means to meditate, what the word itself may mean, and some tips on how to practice meditation without a guide. Before we get into all that, let us take a few moments of silence, a few moments to just be with ourselves. Enjoy this scenery. Enjoy the energy. Let us begin. Okay, so let us begin by focusing some on what is meditation. What does this word mean? And I will only share with you some perspective, some possible meanings for this word, because there are so many. It may mean something different to everyone. So I do not wish for this to be an ultimate, this is what it is and nothing else. The word meditation can be defined in many ways. It is not very limited in its meanings. But our idea of what it means versus what it actually means can very much differ. So we would do well to differentiate between our idea of meditation and what it actually means to meditate. We look meditation up in a dictionary, for instance, we may find several different definitions. If we look it up in various different dictionaries, we may find various different meanings and definitions. One could essentially meditate on the word meditation. Just simply sit with it without drawing conclusions, without seeking a final, concrete answer. We could just be with the word. Some believe meditation means contemplation. To focus on something or to think about something. And perhaps it does in some ways, but that does not seem to be its ultimate purpose, its ultimate reality. Because contemplation implies focusing on an object or an idea, something material or conceptual. But in meditation, in this form of meditation, we want to let all of that go. Because this is more about being with ourself. So if we truly wish to contemplate or focus on something, we could focus on ourself, who we are, what we are, beyond what we already think we know, beyond what we believe, beyond what we have been told. And perhaps beyond the body and the mind. Well, there are various levels of meditation as well. We can meditate while we do dishes, while we eat. We can learn to observe ourselves and our surroundings all as one, while doing various other things. So while many guided meditations will have you lay down or sit somewhere quiet, and have your headphones on, do this specific breathing practice, or focus on this specific idea, or have this specific goal. This first type of meditation we're discussing can be done at any time, at any place, no matter if it's quiet or loud, no matter if you were alone or being social. This is a method of simply observing ourselves, learning to detach from identifying solely with the individual, to a point where we are still able to function, whatever task we may be doing. And yet we are not 100% sucked into that task. We have not, as they say, lost ourselves in that task. On the one hand, we are aware that we are doing the task. And on the other hand, we are observing this person who is doing the task. Observing the task itself. And yet our field of observation is not limited to just that. We allow the field of observation to widen, to expand, to take in that which is around us, meaning outside of the body. This helps us to break down that barrier, that invisible wall of the individual and the environment. The so-called internal and external worlds, as well as the physical and the spiritual worlds. We do not need to spend time or energy on thinking about and focusing on where the internal and the external end and begin. What is one, what is the other? Getting lost in trying to define them. So if we choose to contemplate anything, we learn to do it very loosely. We learn not to get attached to any previous ideas that we had about these concepts. We allow the mind to expand. We allow our knowledge to expand. Well, another form of meditation can be said to be deeper. So where perhaps you do not wish to be engaged in some type of task, to where we can more so let go of the perceived physical being, the physical state. And we can take this time to be more still, to engage more with the energy body and our true self. This is a meditation in which we allow ourselves to relax, to simply be, without any other goals. And this is the difference between this type of meditation and many guided meditations, is that most guided meditations have a goal. There is a purpose. There is a destination. There is an attempt to create a certain outcome or various possibilities of outcomes. But in this deeper type of meditation, we simply allow ourselves to just be. No ulterior motives. We do not need to feed desires. We do not need to react based on the senses and perception. So in this type of meditation, we are often retraining our brain to not react in certain ways, to not respond to stimuli the way it would often do we would do well to understand This type of meditation is very different than survival. The survival of the physical nature. There really is no need for questioning our security and safety during this deeper meditation. Because we are essentially letting go of the sense of the individual. The name, the body, the likes and the dislikes, all of the labels, definitions, judgments. None of that is needed here. It's completely unnecessary. In this state of meditation, we learn to become one. To become one with ourself and our environment. Let's say when we're just walking around, looking at this scenery, we may say or think to ourselves, oh, there is a tree. To the left of that is another tree. To the right of that, there's another tree. And so on. But even in a physical nature, the trees are all connected. Well, many of these trees around us are all the same type. They really only differ in age, size, shape. But in an energetic way, they're all connected. And also very much in a physical way. Connected through their roots, connected by branches. Well, if we look at the ground, it's full of leaves at this time of year. And we can barely even differentiate what types of leaves they are, much less decide which tree these leaves came from. The leaves all mingled together and are now coexisting, all sharing the same space. It's like going from saying there's one leaf to saying there is a bed of leaves or a pile of leaves. Because now that one leaf has become many and is not so individual anymore. If you put one leaf into a pile, it is not so easy to still perceive that individual leaf. It begins to blend in as it coexists with all the others. So again, we can walk around and we can define, there's one tree, there's another tree, here's still another tree. Well, in meditation, the need to do that is drastically lessened. Really, it doesn't need to exist at all. And we can get it to the point where it does not exist. These things become merely idle thoughts that we do not need to attach to or feed. So when we come into a deep meditative state, when we start getting in touch with the energy body and going beyond the mind and the body, everything starts to blend together. The boundaries and barriers become truly invisible, truly unnecessary. And we do not need to define the objects around us, nor do we need to define ourselves. And in coming into this state of undefinability, everything begins to merge. Well, really, it was always merged. It was already like that. It's simply we are able to perceive it more easily through practice. But it was already so. We just didn't necessarily know that. So meditation is a time to let go of defining, to let go of judgments. Because maybe it is helpful in survival scenarios to judge what is healthy, what is not healthy, what is safe, what is not safe. Yet in deep meditation, this is no longer necessary. Because we are not so deeply engaged with the individual and with the body and the mind. And it is the body and the mind that feels the most vulnerable. It is the ego, or the individual identity, that feels the most vulnerable, the most insecure. The cosmos does not feel insecure. The cosmos does not feel vulnerable. Even if we wish just to focus on nature, just this earth, nature does not feel insecure. Nature does not feel vulnerable. Everything in nature is perfect. Everything in nature is spontaneous. Nature is not worried about the past nor the future. because it is existing right here and right now. So as we get more in touch with nature and more in touch with the cosmos, we begin to lose this sense of insecurity and vulnerability. The concern for safety also becomes unnecessary. So in this deep meditation, many of our daily concerns we're able to let go of. And this is not really the goal of meditation. It is simply part of the process. It will naturally happen. The more you practice meditation, the more you practice sitting with yourself in silence and stillness, all of this will naturally occur. Just as if you engage with certain things, it naturally happens. But if you eat, your body naturally digests. If you're tired and you lay down, you will naturally sleep. So in meditation, many things would just naturally happen, spontaneously. And this is one reason why I do not engage with these guided meditations anymore. I used to be all into them, trying to find a spiritual guide, trying to connect with the higher self or ascended masters, trying to unblock energy centers or reach enlightenment or whatever. Nowadays, all that simply does not seem necessary. So in certain parts of the path, it may be necessary for you to go through that. Simply to get to the point where you realize you don't need to do those things. There are so many different breathing techniques. Inhaling for so many counts, holding the breath for so many counts, exhaling for so many counts. And they may all have their purpose. They may all have benefits. And yet you will come to observe, if you simply sit still, relax, the level of activity in the body and the mind will naturally slow down. So alternately, when you are in high activity, doing strenuous physical activity, the heart rate and the lungs and the brain, the nervous system, the energy system, it's all working at a certain level. It's all moving and functioning at a certain pace. All connected. And so when you slow down and sit or lay still, just be still, everything will naturally slow down to match that rhythm. Well, if you're not using the body very much beyond what's happening on the cellular level, digestive level, chemical level, and so forth, if you're not doing very much beyond that, then the heart rate will slow down. The brain's functioning will slow down. And likewise, the breath will slow. So there is no need to control the breath. We would do well to understand we are already controlling the breath, whether we're paying attention to it or not. Because there's nobody else here doing it for us. It is simply a matter of whether we are consciously aware of it or not. But we are already controlling the breath. Based on our level of activity, based on our brainwave activity, based on our perceptions. If we're worked up or calm, and depending on how present we are being. If we are concerned with the past or anxious of the future, the breath may be a certain way. But if we are very present, then the breath will be another way. If the mind is not trying to split itself between past, present, and future, if it is primarily focused on the present moment, then everything is able to calm down naturally. So in meditation, we simply learn to become aware of the breath, aware of the fact that we are already controlling it based on our needs in the moment and what we are perceiving, our thoughts, our feelings. We are already controlling the breath. So it is simply a matter of becoming consciously aware of this, learning to observe this. There is no other need to control the breath. You don't need to slow it down. There is no need to do that, because it will happen naturally. If you try to go in and control the breath while it's already being controlled, you're basically fighting yourself. You're not allowing it to simply be. You're trying to do something in particular with it. Slow it down to a certain count, a certain rhythm. But this is unnecessary. So in this deep type of meditation, we learn to let go of control. Surrender is a powerful word. We essentially surrender to ourself, not surrendering to the ego or the individual identity, but more of the cosmic identity. The Tao. The flow of nature, the flow of our true being. Well, let's discuss some helpful practices for meditation when we are not so engaged with other tasks. Well, we can either choose to sit either on the ground or on a cushion, legs crossed. And there's various different ways to do that, between the full lotus and the half lotus and whatever you were able and most comfortable able to do. You can also sit in a chair. A chair with a straight back is preferred. Or we can also lay down. But the general idea here is to have the back as straight as possible. Either straight up and down or straight horizontally. And sitting is one technique to help us get into a center of gravity where it becomes easier to keep the back straight. As we can lean forward and then slowly come back to our center. And you should be able to feel the gravity. It's pulling on you as you're leaning forward. And the more and more you come back to your center, come back straight up, you will feel the gravity less. And so also we can lean backwards. And coming back to our center slowly. And we can lean to one side and coming back to the center slowly. And lean to the other side. And then come back to the center just as slowly. And in this way of using the four directions, you can get a sense of feel of the gravitational pull on your physical being, on your energy. And when we are centered and the back is straight, the center of gravity allows us to stay there with less effort, because gravity is not pulling on us in this direction or that. So the idea is to keep the back as straight as possible without being so strict and rigid. Well, if you feel the need to slightly move, to twist the spine, or to bend in one of those directions, that's perfectly fine. We choose to mostly be still, but at the same time, we do not want to restrict ourselves to any movements that may be necessary. We must still allow spontaneous action. So in also this line of thinking, meditation itself is left to be very spontaneous. Setting ourselves specific time slots to meditate may not always be ideal. Because on different days, the energy is going to be different during that time. So we would do well to allow meditation to be very spontaneous. I am grateful to have a lifestyle where I'm able to meditate whenever it needs to happen. There's almost never anything more important going on. If the need arises to meditate, I can always take at least a few minutes to stop what I'm doing and to meditate. So this is very helpful if you're able to do that with even a small part of your day. But if you set yourself just a small window or a certain time, we begin to lose touch with that spontaneous energy. And we are trying to control it a bit much. So again, meditation should be very spontaneous. Like the wind. The wind doesn't necessarily choose to blow. It just happens. The leaves do not necessarily choose to fall off the tree at a certain time. It's a spontaneous event. When the time comes, they will grow in a spontaneous manner. And then they will fall in a spontaneous manner when that time comes as well. But it does not need to be a specific time. They're not waiting on a certain time to do these things. 'Cause nature goes in its own time. Well, it's also very ideal to wait anywhere from 2 to 4 hours after eating or drinking something. Water is a little less of a concern, but especially if we're talking about anything with caffeine in it or sugar, anything that's going to alter your chemistry, it is best to wait at least 2 hours after ingesting, consuming. Because for one, we do not wish to be focused on that level of digestion in the stomach. It is very ideal if we can breathe into an empty stomach and exhale and further empty the stomach of air and gas. And you just simply do not wish to be focused on digestion at that time. So after 2 to 4 hours, the stomach will typically be empty. And again, this will help the experience in the meditation to simply be, without any other variables. Because many foods and drinks have certain effects on us. It alters our chemistry. It alters our experiences, our perceptions. And we do not wish to do all that in meditation. Again, we wish to get away from all that. It will naturally happen as we meditate. One of the biggest problems many people have is with the so-called monkey mind. Because they are so often engaged in a world where thinking is so prominent, so often required and expected. once they go to meditate, it's hard to get out of that mindset. It's almost like becoming a different person. So the issue is with the thoughts, the volume of thoughts, the non-stop thoughts. One thought leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. And it can go on essentially forever. As long as the brain is functioning, there will be thoughts of some nature. Well, in meditation, it is important to not identify with any of these thoughts, to not really engage with them. Again, we learn to observe the thoughts without getting trapped in them, without over-identifying with the thoughts. Because the thoughts mainly consist of the individual nature, and we do not wish to be bound by the individual nature during meditation. In fact, during the meditation, we will naturally lose that individual nature. The more we become aware of the energy body, we will lose that individual nature, that idea of an individual self. So the thoughts we must be careful with. We must learn to not get upset about them. If they keep coming, we can't concentrate. We can't stop them. Because if we find ourselves trying to stop the thoughts, trying not to think about something, well, it just so happens we're still thinking about that. We've simply altered our perspective on how we're thinking about it. And now we're simply trying to stop it. But you can't stop thinking about something if you're still trying to stop thinking about it. Because the mind is still focused on what it's trying to stop thinking about. So even if you're able to get away from that original thought, you've created another. You've attached yourself to another. In trying to not do something, we're still doing it. So we must learn to not judge these thoughts, to neither feed them nor try to resist them. For here, resistance is truly futile. By trying to resist it, by resisting a thought, we're still engaged with that thought. We would do well to learn to simply allow the thoughts to come and go. It is just like the wind. It blows strong one moment, and then the next moment it can be nearly still. We cannot capture it, and we cannot let it go. There is nothing concrete there to grab hold of. Neither is there anything concrete to let go of. Both aspects are an illusion. And the same is true for the thoughts. They're not concrete. They are simply vibrations. Information. There's nothing to grab hold of, and there's nothing to let go of. When we learn to not identify with the thoughts, and that means not engaging with them, nor trying to stop them, our stream of consciousness is just able to flow. Meaning the thoughts will simply come and then they will go. You feel the wind one moment, and then you don't the next. This is easiest done by staying in the present moment. When meditating, do not need to feed our memories, nor the imagination. If a memory comes up, that's okay. But just as it came, it will also go. As long as we allow it to. As long as we do not attach any significance to the memory or to the imagination, it will come and it will go. And this is the act of being present. Living in each moment. Living in the flow, the way of the Tao. This meditation essentially brings enlightenment. They come hand in hand. For to deeply and truly meditate, we become in touch with our true self. We become one with nature, one with the cosmos. And this, in and of itself, is enlightenment. There is nothing more to seek. There is no point in the future which we can work towards or reach that will bring enlightenment. Enlightenment, at its core, is here and now. We are enlightened. To seek enlightenment or to believe we are not enlightened messes with the present moment. It messes with that oneness. It distorts it. It it puts this false sense in our head that we need to do something, that we're not perfect in the here and the now, that we need to improve ourselves or change ourselves. No, meditation allows us more than to believe, more than to perceive. It allows us to be. We do not need to think about enlightenment, try to define it. Nor do we need to think about being spiritual, trying to define that. Meditation allows us to be all of that. No extra thinking is necessary. No understanding is necessary. It is a state of being. It is our true state of being. And it is happening right now. It is also happening right now. In each moment, it is a continuous event. So meditation brings enlightenment in the here and the now. There are no boundaries in meditation, no limitations. Anything is possible. You do not have to understand it. You do not have to believe in it. If it exists in the cosmos, then it is possible. So let's allow ourselves to spend a little more time being still, being silent, allowing the breath to naturally slow down, allowing the thoughts to come and go. Whether we are sitting or laying down, allowing ourselves to relax, while at the same time allowing the spine to be straight, to be centered in gravity. And allow us to simply be in this moment.